Okay, let's see if I can turn myself upside down here. Here we go. This is a very long, the background for this is goes decades back. I need to talk a little about my own personal experiences. In short, when I was in high school, my class we were in like what you call STEM now. We were doing quite advanced things, mathematics, physics, chemistry. So I have that background. I also have this experience where I can't remember how many classes there was in this school, but it was perceived to be the best school in the city, and our class was number 2, I think, and I was in the upper half of my class. Not to brag, but there's a point about this, and that something very strange happened, because this was like 3 years run, and something very strange happened towards the end of this. I can't remember if it was a third or even close to a half, but I think it was a third of us. The last half year we all flunked. I kind of hacked. I got some help from some benign bureaucrat to get that diploma by doing a tiny stint of psychology instead. So, but why did we, how so many of us flunk? There was like this collapse in morale. This is back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. There was this collapse in morale. That's always something I suspected was behind it. But then I realized some years ago that when I joined the army towards the end of the Cold War, I also started getting serious health problems, and I nearly died in hospital in '95. So, and since then I've been struggling with, at times, is this broadcasting? Yeah, it's broadcasting. So I've had to struggle with like some serious health issues for many years. So I've seen a lot, because I've realized very early that even in this welfare state, it's not a friendly environment. You can't trust the system. We actually tried to resist these injections in the army. We discussed if we could basically, as a group, we just met a couple of days before, but we still tried to organize. And can we resist this? And they're gonna force it in there, and we're gonna get arrested and blah blah blah. And it's gonna have the same end result. So okay, we'll just go along with it. Immediately after, I started having some serious problems. This is part of the reason why I have been this micro-scale entrepreneur, why I have been on the rebellious side, on the activist side of small business. It's not that I wanted to become a tiny businessman very early on. In fact, I grew up in an environment where that was despised, because all these horrible businessmen, they don't pay the state a decent cut. And I grew up in this very socialized, statist thing. So this is the background. Through the years, I then have had the experiences from starting again and again and again, because I had to. After a while, I started enjoying it. It became like my go-to solution. So I've resurrected myself a fair number of times. This includes business entities, it includes open source communities, it includes getting on the board of different organizations, some idealistic, some companies for profit. I've never been like super profitable, but I've had this experience of starting up under very rough circumstances. And I also have the experience of finally, around 2016, realizing that Europe is done for. I've got so many insane stories to tell that I can keep talking for days. And now when the collapse is becoming clear, I can finally talk about it for real. Because it's obvious now. It's out in the open. Which is why I did a tiny video on the DDR earlier. It's different this time. It's going to be much more messy because we have digitalization. We have my basic thinking is that because everything is digital and everything is very connected in the world, that the big systems have already broken down, and then automatically, because of this digital connectivity, new systems are reconnecting, which is why you have most people totally underestimate a couple of things, at least, like the BRICS countries and the global world outside of Europe, how resilient and healthy that is. And also, I think many underestimate how hard or close to impossible it can be to exit and build, especially if you leave it late, especially if you don't do any research, especially if you think you can buy a turnkey solution. Just, I'll just pay a lawyer to set up an offshore entity in a couple of years, and I'll transfer my brokerage account, and yeah, good luck. And my background is also getting a lot out of a little. I've never had a lot, but I've been very good at wrangling as much freedom and room for moving and building that I could from my circumstances. I've created these precious workplaces in a socialist country for other people while I was still literally crawling between rooms myself and fainting a couple of times on the floor. I still try to do the thing, like use the system for the purpose of underpinning this welfare system. I've done some teaching in like to integrate immigrants for profit, of course. The iMac I'm doing this on is fully paid by these welfare systems because, well, if I can create work for other people while I'm starting from nothing again around 10 years ago and literally fainting, why shouldn't I get the same support? So this iMac, which is now finally aged and broken, well, it just magically appeared on my desk, on my table in a log cabin where I was the caretaker at a Buddhist center, and it was like this kind of magic. But it's fiat magic. It's printed money. It will all fail. I realized around 2016 that I need to get out. I can't remember if that was when the fact checkers came on into the system, and then when 2020 hit, I was in many ways out. I had just established myself in a completely alien country with a company, a work permit, a business visa, everything. I literally had people tell me, "Oh, you're golden." And I was. And I paid with my own money for founding all of this. And we got, which was intended to be a independent, it was started as an independent business. It was intended to be a branch of our company in Europe. With time, we got within a few months of getting started on the ground, and then everything closed down. And when you run a video photography production business and Meatspace closes down, and I'm on the other side of the globe, and no one understands that now everything has changed forever. I basically walked away from 3 or 4 business units, depending on how you view it. I walked away from any kind of shitty pension in the future. I walked away from part of a house, most of my belongings, and because I knew I would be dragged down if I had gone back. I came within days of having to exit during the worst panic. with a blood pressure of 220, 120. And I knew I couldn't go to hospital because that would be the most dangerous thing at the time. So you get into these very rough places, and all of it is because of bureaucracy. And I'm not blaming the bureaucracy in the countries I've stayed, because it's been much more humane and sane and flexible than what I have heard, especially about Europe. And regardless of something like this happening, or if the events that are very kinetic are going to expand, or it doesn't matter, because the collapse is coming. In terms of freedom, it's already happened. In terms of civilization, the collapse, where, and this is the thing that I see a lot, because I have started from scratch several times, and I see especially young people. I really empathize with young people, because I remember a time when I could start a business from scratch. I could start it cash. I could get cash from payment, and then later that year I'll report the taxes. That was not a problem at all. I could get jobs by just walking into a store and talking to people. Oh, yeah, you get a trial a few days, and if they like you, you're working there, and then, okay, yeah, here's my tax ID thing, and all you had to do was to give them that before they paid you. Sometimes you could even postpone it a couple of months. You wouldn't get paid, but you'd get the lump payment. And I remember like doing things like taking over a photography society in a student union, and all we had to do was sign a couple of sign once, each of us, and then two of us, we took over the existing budget and everything. Took that one paper to the state bank, and you got access to the accounts. So I remember that kind of period. And I also, starting something in Europe, completely within Europe, I would never do it. I know how to do it. I know how to do it in combination with some kind of outlet outside of Europe. And I also spend a lot of time in privacy and security tool space, because I have to. I'm not accepting what the EU is doing, and I also know that I need these access to these kind of tools and these kind of people and all of this to rebuild myself, and then I should also share what I'm doing because I have all of this combined experience. And what I see in that space is, I totally understand that people want to build on Bitcoin, they want to build on Monero, they want to be completely private and never appear on any kind of radar. And personally, I will not do anything that goes up against the local culture and local laws in the countries I stay. I know how to defend myself online, I know how to find things online, I know how to deal with getting things done in the setting of being back in Europe, which I need to do at some point soon. But I see that there is this real despair within Europe for good reasons, because the environment for existing, for starting something new, is abysmal. If I were to go back, if I were to spool back 10 years, and start up again where I was, which would include needing some kind of car, which would include starting a limited company in my passport country again. If you sum up all of the taxes and fees from buying the car, well, it would be in my private name, but I need a car. So officially, that wouldn't be counted as taxes, but there would be fees here and there and there. Since I would buy a beta, all of the fixed fees, when you count in needing to set up some kind of business entity to be taken seriously, you're looking at a major investment, like at least maybe $10,000 or $5,000 to $10,000 at least to just get started. And then I would have like an old beta car, I would have a new company with new customers, and what would I be up against? I would be up against an environment where everything is taken over by large global corporations, So I wouldn't even have that chance that I would have back in the 80s, that I could, okay, I need a job for the summer. I just go around to shops. I'll be a cashier within a few days. I haven't got that option at all. It would be all risk, almost no return. It's a winner take all, and it's the most corrupt winner takes all. This is the environment that Europe is in now. And also, I went back late 2022, and within 3 days, I had a lot of new contacts who would have backed me, including a very respected, very wealthy local entrepreneur. He would have backed me. All of them wanted to back me to build something in this kind of niche that I'm actually producing now. So I got very close to pulling the trigger, but then I realized the week or two after, when everything was planned and I had started kind of preparing all of these contacts and like, okay, I'll do it. My plan was actually to buy an old sailboat again and literally live out at some tiny island for the summer, and literally jump in a dinghy with my suit on and build a business network and build these kind of entrepreneurial tools, because it would be the only way to manage cost. It would be the only way to stay out of the insanity of this tiny town in Europe. Then I realized all of them were dependent on state funding. One way or another, they were all dependent on state funding. Even the most respected entrepreneur, he didn't do it because he had to, but he did it because it was available, like I did. This thing will not survive. I'll talk a lot about this later if there is any interest, and when I find some kind of outlet for this, because it needs to be said. It's a very serious situation, because no innovation, no sanity, it's left. I've seen this traveling in Asia and the Middle East. The people I meet are the people who normally would build or rebuild. They all left. So let's start off this, because there's a practical side to this as well. And that is, like I said, there is a despair, and then there is people who give up and they stay inside of the system. They want to leave and they are completely lost. They don't know how to get out of it. And then there are people who are stuck in a privacy space and a total rebel place where both types of people have no means of building a bridge into some kind of sensible future. And both groups have no idea that outside of Europe there are countries that treat you in a sane way and a flexible way, and where the taxation is not that high and where the regulations are not insane. Some things can be worse even, but this is an individual thing. Totally depending on what you do, there are so many ways of doing this. I'm not a legal expert or anything, but I know that you need options. You need to, even for those who are not planning to leave, even for those who are planning to stay and fight, and I totally respect that. And if I was not basically really hurt in the army, I probably would have done the same thing. Let's go to the collapse part. Like this. Yeah, well, Spain just collapsed because of green energy, and then they blame it on the atmosphere. And now they're going to print $1 trillion to upgrade all of Europe. This will collapse. It will collapse the currency, because this is printed money. They're going to blame blackouts on not spending all of this money for years, until like Venezuela or South Africa conditions are reached. There is no doubt about that. So how can you build something in Europe, especially like this digitalization and all of this insane extremities, like extreme kind of digital towers of Babel? It's not gonna last. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back to 2021 for myself. This is the state that I left my project in 2021 of resurrecting myself. I walked away from everything, and obviously I had, because I've always had at least 2 companies running and at least 1 or 2 or 3 fallbacks, because I wanted to, and realized very early on that I need to be resilient. So this is where I left my legal research off in 2021. It's 108 tabs of offshore companies. This is a very messy field, of course. My first tab here opens. Well, it means that this company is still providing. I've got this as nominee shareholder services because it is possible, but with the UBO rules, and I'm not going to do it. But I want to know how it's done and who's going to do it. I might give someone a hint, like, okay, you might look into this. The whole field has changed a lot in these 3 years. So the next page is, well, formercompany.com. Well, company restoration, voluntary striking off. This page is not found, but probably like deleting companies in the UK has become much harder because of some kind of rule and surveillance and blah blah blah. But these people, yeah, they form companies in different kind of countries, and this is what this list is about. This is one of the bigger ones. Ready-made companies. This is one thing I observed in late 2020, I think, into 2021. Shelf companies, ready-made companies like these. In 2020, all of these lawyers globally started stacking up a huge amount. Some of them had like huge lists because they knew everything had changed. And those lists, when I checked a couple of years later, those lists were empty. Now there are, well, this company has like up to 20-year-old companies and 40-year-old. I can't remember this one, but there are no recent ones for sale here, and all of them had recent shelf companies for sale from 2020 onwards. This is the game. BBC and Cops.com, they are big. I can't remember if they have shelf companies. I've only done the shelf company once myself, and it cost like $7,000, and we didn't get the company, and I had to literally drag some really horrible lawyer out of his office. So we were supposed to get it on the same day, and it took weeks. So that was wasted money. I remember that guy. That was not in the offshore game. That was within my European passport country, and I didn't know how messed up and corrupt all of this was then. And I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about that particular type of service in my passport country. So there are different qualities to these companies. There are scams out there. There are services that are too cheap, of course. There are services where you pay way more than you need, because I mean, if you're going to set up a YouTube channel and you need some resilient payment rails, like this is my main activity now. You don't need to, you don't need to have like secret shareholders and blah blah blah, and a structure with a holding company or things like that. Of course not. Yeah, ready-made companies. This one is big. Conran, I remember those. They have old ones in the UK, but as you see on the list here, there are no new companies. This is one of the companies that, like the providers that had like a ton for sale after 2020. I think archers. This is one of the most important, like the most expensive ones. I'm not going to use them, but I'll use these as references. Like you can see the price list for the really expensive ones. You can watch the price list, and then you get an idea of which jurisdictions are the hardest to, or maybe the most valuable, because there is. Yeah, this is an interesting forum. There's a lot of internal research for me that I need to do now again, and it's obviously outdated. Opening accounts is a totally different game now than when I researched it. I have I haven't got much of a life like a health insurance any longer, but she still helps me to get a very cheap one with a very high premium. My insurance broker is an ex-Singapore private banker, so I asked her in 22, early 22, late 21 or something, if she could help me get another offshore account. And yeah, there was one option left, and that was maybe the Isle of one of the Channel Islands. And she called me back like, sorry, now that is also closed. And she wanted to help me. So this is very different. There's another one. Probably very outdated, this one, but there are some jurisdictions that are very interesting. Like this is Brunei. I'm not going to do Brunei. It's expensive, and I don't want to go there. A lot of these pages are not found, which illustrates my point that this is a changing landscape. I can't remember if this one was on my list. Okay, we come to flag theory. This is all about flag theory, and like ideally in flag theory, at least you need at least 1 second citizenship. I never got close to that. When I migrated in 2016, I laid the groundwork for doing it, but then 2020 completely blew that out of the water. I haven't got the assets to buy one. And honestly, after 2020, it became very obvious for me that if you want to avoid the potential problem of getting caught up in your passport country regulations completely, or like being recruited for something kinetic or whatever, I mean, can you really trust any jurisdiction after 2020? What if you spend almost all your assets on getting a second citizenship, and suddenly you need to do this or that, and they do not respect your physical, your autonomy of your own body? Well, you need at least 2 then. So unless you're on the level where you can easily buy 2 or 3 citizenships, and that shouldn't be more than like maybe 10% of your assets, but this part of it is gone. But where you reside, where you start a new business, where you operate, where you get a private bank account by visiting and maybe getting a residency for a while, or even using some of the loopholes where you can still get some bank accounts in some interesting countries on a tourist visa, do an extended stay. That part is still in play, of course, and there are ways of playing the flag theory even under the most messy circumstances. Even with almost no assets, you can still play this. It's highly individual. I can relate, and I can try to help people with my background. For Europe, it's a lot about just kind of gradually or disentangling yourself from the systems, or if you have to cut the cord, what kind of tentacles will react. And this, for someone who exits in a messy way without funds, or need to rebuild without funds, or need to get a bridge into the future that is not completely controlled by the European Union, this can be played, but in a very different way, a very highly individual way. So, yeah, let's skip some of these. Yeah, there are classes of these companies in Europe. With one of my companies, which was a co-op, my partner had a business unit in Estonia. That worked very well for him. He was one of the first who got a bank account got everything done without ever visiting. He did that before any of these services listed that as possible, because he found a bank that accepted it. And then a year or two later, it was an available service. I wouldn't recommend anyone depending on Europe at all, but Estonia is maybe an option. You'd have to pay taxes to Estonia, of course. Low tax, other jurisdictions. Some of these, like Hong Kong, is completely changed. Singapore, probably not. Canada. Oh. Classic offshore jurisdictions, these are probably the ones you want. And there's something to be said about this, because nothing of this is about cheating in the way of avoiding taxes, or it's about sensible business environment. It's about being treated in a way where you can survive. It's just about basic decency and sanity. So for me, I haven't made any money, or haven't had any paying customers since, direct paying customers since 2018. I literally pulled cash from ATMs in 2020 because I left. I hadn't got a payslip any longer. Since I haven't got a payslip any longer, my bank would not let me transfer money out of Europe. So I lived from ATMs, and I stashed away some cash. I've been living as a peasant, happily, with a lot of freedom on the ground as a peasant since then. And for this year, I'll rebuild. So personally, I won't look for like zero taxation. I'm actually looking for some kind of sane haven where I'm allowed to pay a fair cut, where I'm allowed to build something that is not completely hampered down by regulations, and where I don't have to pay a bookkeeper fortune for even from the first year, where I don't have to have a long argument with my bookkeeper that, oh, you can't deduct these T-shirts on your company because there's no logo on them. Well, I hate white T-shirts. I would never buy these white T-shirts on my own. It's like, this is only for company use. Okay, I'll let it. She put it in the books. This was for a sole proprietorship, making less than, how much did I make that year? 20,000. I still did better than most people in my niche, but like, I worked like mad, and I weighed 20,000. I had to pay like maybe. At that time, this is 20 years ago, it was maybe not so bad, maybe like 15 to 20% taxes. Now, it's done. It's impossible. So like when it comes to particular countries, I'm not going to go into it because I'm not going to be legal advice. I have the experience of having to be a rebel nomad, rebelling against the European Union and the digitalization, and not rebelling against any local cultures or jurisdictions, because that's frankly insane and not the right thing to do. Yeah, this is one of the things I can advise against things like anonymous bank accounts. Like, well, let's see. I'm not even going to touch it. You're not going to get that. You shouldn't get that. You shouldn't try to get that. in corporate beliefs, yeah, I'm not going to say too much about particular jurisdictions, but beliefs seems to be a very easy and doable jurisdiction. Probably it's probably like that still, but there's been all of these changes. This is an example of something that is interesting data, because do you want to set up a company in Afghanistan? Well, it can be done, but you have to pay 30,000. Well, obviously these people would have, they might even have to fly some lawyer out there from like Pakistan or something, and that lawyer would, for good reasons, demand both business class and for sure some security guard on the ground. If I was young, I would look into this. Oh, and I would trust. I would trust. I would trust Afghanistan in terms of being sane in legal terms, sane and fair more than the European Union. Australia, I bet this price is going to go up a lot, because that's going to be Bangladesh, Brunei, Cambodia. Yeah. India, 27,000. You can actually buy there are a lot of companies in India for sale, but you have to go there and you have to buy it on the ground. And yeah, good luck. Look into it. Indonesia, this is very relevant, because in Indonesia, people are going to have a long-term visa. I have a friend who has a long-term visa on Indonesia. He has a company and a work permit and everything, which is what made him just coast through the whole 2020 and thing. Labuan is one of the best. I'm not going to go into these things, but it's an interesting. Lao. Yeah, Uzbekistan. There are some interesting things there, like Chad. Of course, like international corporations use these things. Like someone is like, okay, we got some problem in Africa. Maybe we'll do the Mali market. Maybe our corporations will go in there and you just have this product meeting and like, okay, yeah, set up a unit, and we might never use it. And, my business colleague in the co-op actually had some developers in Mali, which was good for him. Let's see if Nepal is on the list. Oh, they haven't got Nepal. That means that they are not capable of doing everything. This is interesting, because a company that can do Afghanistan is not doing Nepal. Like, I don't know why, but enough about this. And we come to Georgia. I might do Georgia. I might do a few weeks or even a few months. I could do it online. I need to see how things are on the ground. I need to. I've got one shot only. I can't spend tens of thousands of dollars on shopping around. So I need to go on the ground. I need to prepare that by chatting to all of these providers and try to figure out which one is dependable and not too expensive. And then I'll ask them for, can you help me get my personal bank account first? And then before that, I might even visit banks and try to get it on my own to save the money, but also get the knowledge about how things are here. And if I get one, I might ask them for another one. And then I'll ask them for a sole proprietorship. That shouldn't be too expensive. And if I have that one or two personal bank accounts and then I have a sole proprietorship, I'll probably leave and I'll probably try to set up a limited company somewhere else. Or I might even step up and start a limited company in Georgia. And then after a few months, I'll be back in the game. And I haven't done much research on this, but it seems like you can run PayPal accounts totally fine legally and above board and everything in Georgia. And it's on my map. It's something I'm going to look into. I might do more on it later. Belize, search for Belize. Yeah, this is interesting. This is SC. What is SC? Seychelles. Yeah, this is some Germans doing something from the Seychelles. Maybe. Certificate of good standing. Yeah, well, there's all of this paperwork. So, and this is one of the things that's going to come, because in the future, well, here's someone with. Here's Heisenberg. Interesting people out there. I'm not going to comment that. There is this drive toward global taxation all over the world, and I've visited some rough countries that it seems to me, I'm trying to read between the lines, and it seems to me, and I was able to predict like the circumstances of visas for people in a country that I haven't been for 29 years at some point last year. And what I told them is, well, this is international, it comes from outside, and in 2 or 3 years things are going to be easier for you guys again. And that happened this year, so it took a year. And it's an international drive where if you're not paying any taxes anywhere, I paid my taxes to the country I migrated to. I paid taxes continuously since the 80s without minus 1 year in 99 in Europe. So again, this is not about, and I think it's very risk. I don't think it's worth the risk-reward ratio of going completely off the map is not good. The risk-reward ratio of building something in defiance of these systems is very good, especially a long time. Let's leave those wild German lawyers where they are. So Seychelles is the most classical jurisdiction. It seems to me that it's changed. It's not. I see some of these providers taking the Seychelles off the map. All of them used to have it. So something has happened there. Dutch Foundation, well, that's changed. Netherlands has probably completely changed. So let's see what these guys have. Yeah, I'll leave those around alone. I wouldn't use people inside of Europe unless I really know I can trust them, because I wouldn't trust them to be on my side. You should never trust a lawyer to be on your side, of course, but you have to trust a lawyer in terms of being on the side of sanity, basically. This is some kind of that's a card provider. Those can be very dicey. Some privacy here is mixed in. Oh, something. Yeah, this is a card provider from Iceland. I've forgotten about those. I'll put them to side. Maybe they are working. Okay, Liberty Bank and Georgia is still around. I'm going to check those out. I might try to get an account, and it seems like it's still doing well. Yeah. Obviously, some kind of what I need first of all myself is probably any kind of account where I can register PayPal and all of these services, so that I can at least set up payment rails for YouTube and Substack and like school and whatever. And I'm not gonna this time, because I spent 6 years building 2 companies that were resilient as hell, and then everything closed down. I didn't factor in the world closing down, so I'm not going to build something again where it can be taken away from me. So fiat payment railways is, even though that might be how I get the bulk of my income, where I make a living, it will not be my priority. My priority will always be direct, uncensorable payment. Because you can even refer to the human rights here. it's a cruel and unjust punishment to take all of the bank accounts away from someone for having the wrong opinion. So in terms of international law, it is illegal. Yeah, so you got account of bookkeeping, ship and yacht registration. This is fun. I had a commercial boat for it's only a great liveaboard for 10 years, and I'd never finished the registration in my name. That was fun. I've had my own boat for 20 years. For a young person, this is a very good tip. Buy any kind of sailboat. It can be a tiny one. Then you register it in a ship registry. I think this can even be done in London. And then you register a tiny company anywhere where that boat is listed as an asset, and then you build a YouTube channel and everything on that company with you as the owner and the content provider, and don't try to hide your name or something, but you build an offshore entity where you have a sailboat and you actually start sailing around the world, and you build YouTube content and crypto content. You can be untouchable, or like you not untouchable, but you can be so free. You can have so much freedom within a couple of years you wouldn't imagine. For young people, just do this. I'd be happy to be a mentor online. A mentor mentorship would be when someone more experienced offer their advice for free, because there might be some future benefit and business. Or after all, Europe needs to be rebuilt sometime in the future, and this is what Building in Defiance is about for me, because I intend to come back, but I do not intend to come back without all of these tools. I don't intend to come back and almost get killed in some kind of welfare system. No way. Yeah. This is another thing, because I'm never going to be involved in big business in blockchain and crypto, and because I don't want to get anywhere close to something that might be a scam, or be scammed, or scam myself, or have someone scam themselves and I'm in the company. The risk reward is not worth it. Like, actually ethic, not communist ethic, but I wouldn't be able to do it. These are tools to be used for building your own resiliency, and these are tools to be prepared for a future immediately or later on. It's like having this foundation that is unsensible. It's possible. So this is why, like, if anyone comes to me and says, like, yeah, I want to set up a crypto exchange, I'm not gonna touch it. All I'm gonna say is it's possible and it's out there, but be damn sure what you do, because there are a million gotchas, and most of those gotchas are gotchas that you don't know about. I've withdrawn from the board of some of my companies. One of the one I started without even having any basic disagreement with my partner, but I just needed, like, this. What he was doing one day was just so irresponsible that I didn't agree with it. I realize now that I should have jumped on the plane the next day. I would have been there, and I could have talked to him, and I could have talked him down, and I could have found a solution that would have saved us a shitload of money. In another event, I knew the exact day where this startup was insolvent, which means that I, as the director, would have legally, I would be required to go to the courts and demand to have the company dissolved within that business day. But instead I cut my own salary, and I actually hired on a new customer for 7K the same day, and by cutting half my salary, I cut 10% of the others, and I should have fired my partner that morning. I should have fired my partner and been much more brutal about it. But anyway, in the end, at the end of the day, on our cash flow, there was 10K available, and then it was back like the boss of the company. That was the one that I recruited myself towards doing this. He got fired. He got ousted from his own open source company. Some weeks later, he fired me. I haven't got a grudge for that, because by then everything was unraveling. It was unraveling across 4 countries without showing nothing of this shows on the outside. It showed in the fact that I got wrecked and my physical health was set back again. Another person he claims that he got a permanent heart disorder after this stress. And several people lost their careers because ultimately this social, not DEI, but this kind of bullshit was like the underpinning of the company was totally wrong. So the founder got ousted, and then I was there without anything, and they wanted some money from me, these buggers. And he advised me to just say no. So I said no. And these things won't show on the surface, and in the IT sector, this is the norm. Everything is complete chaos on the inside. And this is my point. If you do things with other people, and if you then you get into an environment where there's a million gotchas, and something will happen, and if it blows up, you might spend years later like, okay, my key decisions, how much can I learn from them? I'm still learning from these key decisions 10 years previously, because I uncovered new levels of tiny gotchas that got me. So this is how you pay, how you build experience. Another Al Salam Bank, that's an interesting bank. Anyway, I'm gonna skip some of these. This used to be Crypterium.com. I can't remember what that was. Cash App was on my list, of course. I'm blocked now. I'm in the wrong country. So, as I said previously, a lot of these are now shut down. Social partnership marketing. Ooh. Some years ago, I would have been looking for this, like, oh, I might use this in the socialist setup of my country. Or I had the phone number of a secretary to one of the ministers at one point, and a tiny foot in the door to become a welfare entrepreneur. I didn't do it. I didn't feel like it. I could have done it. My gut feeling told me not to. Oh, OECD, this is one of the entities that is behind all of it. So this was on my radar even in 2021. I didn't realize that. I didn't remember that. This is another one that we have been, the US. I'm not going to touch anything that's got to do with the US. I don't think I will work with anyone who has a US citizenship, not because I don't want to, because it's just not worth it for me in terms of risk reward. And I think the way people in the US have to handle this, especially if they have to exit in a not so streamlined way, good luck. Really, seriously, good luck. maybe staying within the US is probably the wisest choice, and building something within the US is probably the wisest choice. Estonian companies for sale, that's interesting. But you need that digital ID, biometric ID in Estonia. So yeah, turn a little. This is one of the, I think maybe we visited these before. These are the top of the line, so you get some pointers from yeah, this is someone who was onto it early, Bitcoin offshoring, and like I've got like enough I've got enough to rebuild myself and get the offshore company and stay a few months somewhere, and then, so for me it's not, these seems to be the interesting guys, and Monero is still on their radar. I'll come back to these people, but as to using any services, because I haven't got assets that are worth securing or moving or anything. It's for me personally, it's not. And I think the people I might be able to help will be in more or less the same situation. So let's drop that one. St. Vincent. There are different jurisdictions, and these things are changing a lot. So I need to upgrade myself on jurisdictions. I'll end up with something simple myself, maybe one or two, maybe 2 units, but I think my sole proprietorship in my passport country is still active, or if it's not active, I'll use my account and claim the right to do it, things like that. But I don't trust the banks. I have a bank in a credit mutual union kind of thing. I have a passport. I have a bank account in my passport country, and I have like a legal right to have an account. And I haven't got the digital ID. Without the digital ID, I can't even now access job classifieds in my country, and it's insane. But I still got that account where I can't transfer to countries abroad, even when I sell a physical item. When I have my family sell a physical item in my passport country, I can't transfer that out of the country. So yeah, that's capital controls and EU for you. Is this a single actor? That's interesting. Probably one key lawyer and lots of partners. I see I've researched Vincent and Grenadines a lot. That was because I was thinking of taking my business in Europe and like pivoting towards crypto, like in the way I've described, in a non-scammy way, a legal way, with my remaining co-op. But my partners were not up to it, and they have now, some of them are back in their, well, I got a couple of people out of their cubicles by providing all of these, but by doing what I'm doing now, a lot of footwork behind the scenes, a lot of coaching, a lot of PinePhone, yeah, I bought that. A lot of background footwork, a lot of strategizing, a lot of thinking through all eventualities in a sane way. Offshore companies in Lebanon. I met someone online who's in Asia who lost all of his savings in Lebanon, and fortunately had some Bitcoin, and now he's off the radars because, well, he has a bit of Bitcoin, who's lived through all of this, and I would be very surprised if these people can still do it. But for someone young, yeah, it's be careful at the border because you're going to be literally interrogated for good reasons. Armenia, I might go to Armenia. It is very interesting. I might go to Georgia first, and then when I get something started, at minimum a personal bank account and maybe a personal sole proprietorship in Georgia, I might take a bus or train. I think there's trains going to Yerevan, and then I might try to get something the same there. This is updated 30th of January. Registered a company in Armenia as a micro entrepreneur, and I can do the hotel trick. I can like stay somewhere very cheap and they get to know me, and I can leave a bag and then I come back, and when I come back and I get my bag and they see me coming back again, they trust me more, and I have a base. I've done this once in Asia. Now I'm doing it a second time in Asia. I'm doing it in Egypt. I'm going to return to Egypt, and I have somewhere to return to because there is a rapport between this cool Bedouin and a couple of Bedouins. One of them owns a hotel, the other one owns an Airbnb, and he was kind enough to give me the last room for free because I wanted to start some business, and I did some real estate photography for him, and I really feel not happy about being able to help him. But that's a year ago, and I'm going to be back. And this is not like, it's not, I'm talking about, I mean, this is not about helping in a, Trungpa has a saying like idiot compassion. There has to be mutual interest. I can coach people on how to do this on their own. Well, and I need some kind of payment for my basic use of time. And I can get into business partners, but partnership, but that is, in this game, it's even harder than when you do it in your passport country. I've done that many times in my passport country. I wouldn't hesitate doing it again. This is what I started doing in 2022, and some of these established people would have not only vouched for me, but I think I could have gotten some of them to be shareholders or be on my board within, at least after founding it and proving something. I could have played that game in a totally legal game. Doesn't it, in my passport country, there's not even a cost. There's not even a cost. There's only a tiny bit of admin you need to do every year, reporting the shareholders, but it's a wonderful tool because once someone is a shareholder, they haven't got any rights. You are partners, so you can do business together, and you can build the other, like if I get a partner and the partner has a sole proprietorship, the limited company pays out, and that's like taxing that income is up to my partner, and there's no cost in getting a partner, there's no cost in firing a partner off. You can do put-pull agreements. I might be able to do that in my passport country with people that I trust outside of my passport country with time. But I just recently had an event where someone that I know, there's a good match between us, but he's been in the physical space. He left the UK in '83, and he's got a Hong Kong sole trader account since then, and he's great at sourcing things all over Asia. But there were certain personal characteristics that came up that makes it impossible for me, who's doing things online, to bridge the gap between someone who knows everything about the physical world and think that anything can be done, and you can maybe having this concept that now I've got a super hacker as a partner, and nothing we're gonna do is gonna be, everything is possible, and so I had to cut that. You kind of also lobbed a ball to me that was kind of half cutting it. So the distance was distance in terms of experience was too much of a distance. Who knows? Maybe in the future, I would trust someone who can take a fight way more than someone who can't. I had a business partner once who was a sales guy, and he was totally out of control. And once I literally was close to grabbing his coat and literally throwing down the stairs. And the next day he was back, and he wanted to learn more. I really respect that. He sold one of our first major jobs, which then led to other opportunities where I was the coder, and he sold a Drupal website with a WordPress template. And so my earnings fell to like $5 an hour, and I had to spend months getting it done, but it was still worth it. Yeah. Best offshore company for holding Bitcoin. Like, I haven't got much, and I'm not going to look for like places to lock it down in a trust. But I'll certainly look for a jurisdiction where it's kind of accepted or acceptable, or even if you have to get some sensible bookkeeping done on the Bitcoin payment railway. And I think sane jurisdictions haven't got a problem with tiny people making a living and then trying to report things as well as they can. And they do understand that when a regulation changes, it will take time for people to adjust. This is what I mean by flexibility in the system, not any kind of nefarious thing. But yeah, so well, now we've finished like 180 tabs. I'm gonna end up, I'll do another round on this. I'll probably have like another 180 tabs, and then I'll go through all of these, and I'll start being a mystery shopper for myself. I've already got a way of getting a very cheap place to stay in Georgia via a support lady in one of these providers. And yeah, they have people who help with location and renting flats, and that can include like rental contracts where when you then get that maybe not notarized, but I can't remember how it is in Georgia, but you get a document that gives you proof of residency, which I haven't had. I lost a lot of what I lost was on just exiting very hard and ending up without a proof of address. And these providers can also fix some kind of very cheap room. And then I'll be back on the map in terms of proof of address, and maybe I can reboot some of these accounts, and maybe I can access some of these funds again. We'll see. The offshore bank account choices was a good place to end this. In many of these cases, you almost without exception, you have to start some company unit first, and then you get a bank account. So there is a tiny bit of risk. You might go with the wrong provider, you might go with the wrong jurisdiction, you might forget about something, or you might think you can get away with less documentation, and then you end up with a dud, like a company that can't trade, or you end up like months of hard work to get a bank account, and maybe that bank account gets shut down because you don't know what you're doing. So there is a lot to be said about this. I might set up a UK or Ireland or something limited company for one purpose, where there will be no account for holding domains and shares in other companies or ventures only, which would mean that I can report 000 legally to to the company houses in the UK. I've had one of these constructions before. Interesting story. We can do that legally. At least I'm never going to be a big person, so I'm not going to get into the territory where like suddenly that domain name has a high value and I'm legally expected to list that as an asset that has a value. So I might do something like that. I visited Vietnam in early 2013. I visited Vietnam and we discussed doing something like this, and that was a team that was like a bunch of hardworking people in a room, and a Vietnamese German guy who was very central in the community. And well, I saw a couple of years ago that their team was actually sold to some other big corporation, and they really made it. He made it for his workers, and his partner. His partner tried to undermine his boss by trying to do business with me directly. It's a wild jungle. Trying to be sneaky never works. Doing anything illegal, like especially faking documents, like never do it. I've never done it. I've never done it since I mean, technically I might have done it when I was a teenager, when I reused my payment cards at going on a tram, and I might have stapled it twice. So technically that's, but I've never done it, and I'm never going to do it because the risk reward is not good, and you can't. And you should also never start something that is completely fake, because you're just going to be caught up in lies and deliberations and fear, and it has to have a real basis. My real basis is my experience, my story, my need to exit, my story about rebuilding and turning that into content. I have a couple of other projects that will also be content, so it's a very it's a story that's easy to explain and which is real, and hopefully I'll be able to rebuild on that. And it feels optimistic for these reasons, and it's a process I'm gonna cover here and on excellent places like XMR Bazaar, and that's it. This is a live stream. It's taken me an hour and 12 minutes to summarize decades and then a couple of years of frantically finding my new footing on in this world. This is a process, a thing I'm very used to. So this is why I'm gonna do. This is why I put up like options for coaching and consulting on XMR Bazaar, and it is all of that will be within this frame, this set of parameters, this story that you need to exit and build. If you don't want to exit physically, there's still a lot of value to be seen from those who exited and built, those who come back with or stay out, or those who have experience from being out in the world where things are more sane. Because let's go back to that. Ultimately, it is when you do like small business ventures and small to medium in Europe, and I've heard this from people with way more experience than me and way more successful that I meet outside, and they all left. They all started leaving years ago, and they all have the same. They all agree. They will all recognize all these things. In the boiling pot of Europe, it's a wasteland. You're like a tame animal tied to a tree, and there's predators all over the place. While when you're outside in the sane world, the predators are preying on other animals than you, and they get to eat most days, and you are free, so you can maneuver. There are some dangers in this jungle, and even if you have the best intentions of the world, and even if you do everything legally aboard, there's a tiny chance that someone might come and eat you. But the game is completely different. It's sane. We are built to maneuver, and this is why what I'm saying here, I think everything about this is going to be second nature for people. Like this guy I know online from Lebanon, from the business partner that helped my business partner and friend to get developers in Mali and Nepal. It's the way systems work is a well-known fact outside of Europe. It was a well-known fact years back before the internet. And if you are caught up in Europe, especially countries that rely completely on digital processes, this is relevant for many other jurisdictions, I think, but it's Europe that I really know. You actually need to get out and do it. You need to do it outside. You need to have this experience to regain some hope and initiative. Because it can't, I'll try to describe it, I'll try to show it as much as possible, but the experience and the actual, and everything is highly individual. Yeah, that can't be relayed directly, but I'll try. Okay, I guess no one's been listening to this for now, which is fine. I'll see how it spreads. I'll add some keywords. I'll add some link on XMR Bazaar, and then we'll see how it goes. It's a jungle and it's fun. And that's how you create luck. That's how I'm going to create luck for myself. And yep, good luck.